Come one, come all, I'm calling ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages to take a plummeting dive to the ground on the Drop Tower. Hey guys, happy Sunday. We are continuing our lesson on the life of Joseph in the middle of our At the Fair series. Now, before we dive in to the recap on where we last left off with Joseph, if you guys missed last week's video, pause this one, go back and watch the Ferris wheel video, because otherwise you're going to have missed a whole chunk of the story. But if you're all caught up, then that is great. So there's a reason that some fairs refer to their rides as thrill rides. Many of these rides are designed to get your heart racing, to get your blood pumping, to give you a good scare, maybe, some butterflies in your stomach. Well, the bumper cars that we talked about 2 weeks ago are pretty mild compared to some of the others. There's this one terrifying ride that only does two things. It goes up and it goes down. However, when it goes straight down really fast. The Drop Tower might be the shortest ride on the Midway in terms of time spent on the ride, but it's also one of the most terrifying. For a brief second or two, the tower releases you. You are literally falling through the air. Check out this video to see what I mean. The scary part of the Drop Tower ride is that you are powered by nothing more than gravity. Your stomach leaps up into your throat and you scream, and then the brakes kick in, bringing you to a safe landing on the ground. No doubt about it, the Drop Tower is not for everyone. Probably more people give this ride a pass than any other ride. Maybe they're afraid of heights, who knows? But yes, you are securely strapped into your seat, usually with a harness, but still, that moment when you're falling toward the ground at a really fast speed can be scary. So, quick recap, guys. Remember that Joseph had that really odd encounter with Potiphar's wife. She tried to get him to kiss her. He said no, he ran away, she lied to her husband and got him in a lot of trouble, which ended up getting him thrown into prison. Crazy. Joseph has been thrown into the dungeon, and in ancient Egypt, if you went to prison, you had no idea how long you were going to be there. What's worse, you didn't even know if you were going to leave that place alive or dead. They don't have the justice system like we do. They had a pharaoh, and two fellow prisoners that Joseph was down there with found out that Pharaoh was the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Seems like an unfair amount of power for one person, doesn't it? However, even in that scary place, Joseph keeps his faith and remembers and trusts that God was still in control. Open up your Bibles to Genesis chapter 39, verse 21. So Genesis chapter 39, verse 21 starts out with Joseph in prison. And it says, "But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden." So the prison warden is like the guy who was in charge of the prison. He was in charge of keeping all the prisoners in check, keeping them in line, making sure they did what they were supposed to do. So God worked it out so that the prison warden was like, hey, this Joseph's a pretty cool guy. I'm gonna actually put him in charge of all of the people held in the prison. So even in this crazy situation where Joseph is in prison, God was still working and still making it something that kind of worked out in his favor for that situation. So flash forward a little bit. Joseph has been managing the prison with the prison warden. Everything's been going as well as it could be with him being in prison. And a little bit later, we have these other people that come in. So starting in verse 40, it says, "Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master." Pharaoh was angry with these two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who was now going to be in charge of them, and he took over that responsibility. After they had been in custody or in prison for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night. So they each were asleep and they had different dreams at the same exact time. This is important. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he asked them, "Why do you guys look so sad today? What happened? Like, what's going on?" And they said, "We both had these dreams, but there's no one to interpret them. So we don't know what they mean and we don't know what we're supposed to take from them." So in the Bible, you'll find a lot of people put a lot of meaning into dreams that they had and trying to interpret or figure out what those dreams meant. A lot of people do that. And that is a way that we find that God communicated to people. So these guys wake up, talk to Joseph. They're like, "I don't know what to make of this dream I had. It's so crazy. I have no idea what it means." So he tells him about the dream, and he says, "In my dream, I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters of flowers turned into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." So Joseph hears this, and he's like, "This is what it means. I'll tell you," because God gave him the gift of interpretation of dreams. So Joseph is like, "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh is going to lift you up and put you back into your position. You will give him his cup again, just like you used to do when you were his cupbearer before you got in trouble. And when all goes well with you, I just want to ask that you please remember me and show me kindness. Mention to Pharaoh that I helped you when you were here and that I helped to interpret your dreams and all of that." And so the cupbearer's like, "Yeah, okay, I can do that, man, no problem." So when the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a really cool interpretation for his friend's dream, he said to Joseph, "You know, I also had a dream. In my dream, I had 3 baskets of bread on my head." Weird. "And in the top basket, there were all of these like baked goods and cakes and cookies for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." So Joseph hears that and he's like, "Okay, Mr. Baker person, this is what your dream means." He says, "Within 3 days, Pharaoh is going to still be really mad at you. He's going to hang you from a tree and the birds are going to eat you." That's pretty horrible. So, just like Joseph said, a few days later, 3 days to be exact, the Pharaoh brought the cupbearer back in to work for him again, forgave him, and the Pharaoh did end up hanging the baker and killing him. So, as terrible as that is for the baker, it's interesting because Joseph's interpretation of the dreams that they had was true. The true terror of the Egyptian prison kind of played out through that story about Pharaoh's servants, right? Because both of the men, the cupbearer and the baker, were in trouble, and both of them had dreams they didn't understand. Joseph was able to give the cupbearer some good news. However, the baker was doomed. Even Joseph had to be living with a little bit of fear about what was going to happen to him, but he kept his cool. Just as he proved to be a trustworthy slave, he proved himself to be a trustworthy prisoner. His hard work and dedication allowed those that he met to really trust him, and he was given positions of power wherever he was. And the servants that he met in the prison, he gave some good answers to kind of help them figure out what their dreams meant. Now, he was hopeful that after he had helped out the cupbearer, that maybe he would in fact go to his Pharaoh and say, "Hey, I met this cool guy Joseph when I was in prison. You should talk to him. He's a nice man. He really helped me out." Joseph was hoping he was going to remember to do that. But as you might be able to imagine, he soon forgot about Joseph's kindness and totally forgot to say anything to the Pharaoh. So Joseph ended up staying in prison for a few more years. Guys, he was in prison for years for something he didn't even do. How crazy is that? However, even with that situation, his faith remained strong. Now this is pretty amazing that Joseph still had such strong faith even though he was in such a disappointing situation. But he teaches us that we don't have to be afraid because we know that God is watching over us, just like God is watching over him. We can have the same confidence if we're afraid in life or if we're afraid at the top of a drop tower ride. We can trust that God's gonna keep us safe and he's gonna work out whatever the situation may be for good. Somehow, some way, we might not be able to fathom how that could happen, but God has a plan and it's gonna be great. If you're afraid of the drop tower, then the solution is simple. Don't ride the drop tower. If you're afraid of alligators, don't go out into the Florida Everglades. If you're afraid of heights, don't go on roller coasters or Ferris wheels or bungee jumping. Other fears are unavoidable. Some people are afraid of everything from spiders to awkward social situations to speaking in public to being in really tight spaces. Pop quizzes, those are terrifying.
Going to the principal's office, doctor's offices, dentist's offices, illnesses, death.
People are afraid of a lot of different things. We fear the unknown. We are afraid of what we don't know. What's gonna happen if one of my parents loses their jobs? What's gonna happen if I have to change schools? What's gonna happen with coronavirus? People are afraid of a lot of things. And some of those things you really can't avoid. Sometimes things are gonna come up, they're gonna make you feel afraid, and then you have to figure out how to deal with them. And what's the best way to deal with them, guys? Give it up to God and let him deal with it for you. We can maneuver our way around these fears, but sometimes we might have to face them head on. We might have to say, hey God, I can't get out of this situation. I need your help getting through it. You just have to remember that God is there in the good times and in the bad times. He's there when we feel safe and he's there when we don't feel so safe. God is our protector and our shield, and he is going to be the greatest source of comfort in times of fear. Knowing that he's by our side, we can stay faithful to God, just like Joseph did. We can keep doing good work for him, just like Joseph did in the Egyptian prison. We can persevere, that means keep going, knowing that God's never going to abandon us. You don't have to be afraid, you don't have to be scared. When something big or scary comes into your life, just remember that God is with you. Let's thank God every day this week, this is your challenge, for his constant faithfulness, and ask him to give us a faith that is as strong as Joseph's. So that concludes today's lesson, and fear not, the life of Joseph continues next week. We're going to keep diving into the story of Joseph's life. We're going to keep working our way through the At the Fair series. So guys, what I want you to do now is go back to the virtual classroom, and if you haven't already, go ahead and click on the colored pencils, the salt lamp, and the Bible for some extra fun content that is related to today's lesson. As always, remember to subscribe to our channel. Make sure you share this with any friends or family that might enjoy it. And parents, I am always here for you if you need anything at all, resources, prayer requests, anything. I am happy to help, and I hope you guys have a fantastic Sunday and a fantastic rest of your week. Let's hope that fall's coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!